YouTube, this is new Rockstars. Alright, if you haven't seen Fantastic Four, which I have, do not mute the stream and or if you're on YouTube, don't watch. Go watch that. But here.
To new Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and this is a
Also, my opinion on it, top 3 best movies this year. Since Endgame, probably it's one of the best.
breakdown of the end.
I like the movie a lot.
And post-credit scenes of Marvel's The Fantastic Four First Steps. Spoilers are coming! If you haven't seen Fantastic Four yet, pause this video and come back once you have, please. And hey, while you're at it, go check out my spoiler-free review of the film and my really fun interview with the director of the film, Matt Shackman, and Herbie, the robot. Okay, one final spoiler warning. Doom has arrived. But honestly, I think Dr. Doom has more reason to be afraid of Franklin Richards than the other way around. In this video, I'm going to explain how Fantastic Four First Steps ends, everything you missed in the 2 post-credit scenes, and some interesting details that come up in these final minutes. Like, this isn't just gonna be a summary video. There are like 20 Easter eggs that come up throughout the ending of this movie that I don't know if anyone else saw. Before I get started, look at this really fun Fantastic Bricks shirt that I'm wearing, part of our fantastic collection available exclusively at our merch store, nerdriot.shop. Okay, to explain what Dr. Doom's arrival in the Fantastic Four First Steps post-credit scene really means, I do really need to recap what happens in this movie's entire plot and share some broader context of what we have learned about Avengers Doomsday. If you want to skip the plot recap of Fantastic Four, skip to this time. Alright, Fantastic Four First Steps takes place in Universe 828, which the movie's end credits confirm to be a reference to co-creator Jack Kirby's birthday of August 28th. In this alternate history, 4 years into being astronauts turned into superheroes, Susan Storm learns she's pregnant after 2 years of trying with Reed Richards. In the opening minutes, we learn that Sue's future foundation includes an absent delegation from Latveria for global disarmament talks, which is a key detail that we'll come back to. While preparing for their son's birth, the Silver Surfer
That's Dr. Doom.
arrives to herald the coming of Galactus, devourer of worlds. The four launch their Excelsior spacecraft to deep space, following the Silver Surfer's energy signature to find a planet mid-destruction by Galactus's world ship. The ship beams up the Excelsior, and the four follow the Silver Surfer to meet Galactus, who laser focuses on Sue's womb and says that their unborn son is the first being in the universe who shares the power cosmic that he has, and that he is destined to succeed Galactus on his throne and take over his unending hunger. Galactus says that if they give up the child, he will spare their world. They refuse, and they attack Galactus and Silver Surfer in order to escape. Galactus' sight on Sue, though, has triggered premature labor. Silver Surfer gives chase through a wormhole, but Reed traps her in a neutron star black hole to give them about a month to regroup. Sue gives birth to Franklin in space to cap off one of the best sequences I've ever seen in a Marvel film. Back on Earth, the public is outraged the four won't give up the kid, but Sue shuts up the protesters with a hell of a speech and a promise: I will not sacrifice my child for this planet, but I will not sacrifice this planet for my child. Reed comes up with a plan to use his bridge teleportation device as an Archimedean lever to move the Earth. So the world builds giant versions of these structures all over the place to try to teleport the planet to another solar system, and it almost works, but Silver Surfer sabotages these devices. Johnny Storm stops her from destroying the final bridge in New York by sharing the homework he's been working on all movie, using a phrase Silver Surfer spoke to him in her native language from the planet Zenla, plus various deep space messages from her home planet and planets she helped destroy. We learned Shalabal was a scientist and a mother on Zenla who volunteered to become Galactus' herald to spare her world. Reed's plan B
I shook a giant thing of ice.
is to use Franklin as bait to get Galactus to step into a bridge to try to teleport him to the far reaches of space
Anyway, I'll say it later.
where, without his ship, he would be stranded. The final battle is a tense scramble with baby Franklin as the football, but Sue ultimately uses a life-draining blast of her force field to shove Galactus back toward the bridge. Reed gets Franklin back. Galactus falls into the portal, but manages a death-saving throw. Johnny prepares for a sacrificial kamikaze, but Silver Surfer returns at the last second to shove him out of the way and use her own power cosmic that Galactus gave her to knock the two of them in through the portal. So we come upon the pivotal ending scene. Sue, spent from using her force field to shove Galactus through the bridge portal, collapses dead. Reed frantically tries to administer CPR, but it's no use. Baby Franklin cries and reaches for his mom and calmly lays on her chest and places his little hands on her, and Sue's fingers twitch. And when we see Franklin again, the faintest lavender glow emits from his hands, and then suddenly a vibrant lavender light glows from Sue's eyes, and she gasps alive again. Baby Franklin sweetly claps, which I can tell you, as a dad of a 19-month-old, is one of the first things babies learn how to do, and it is awesome. So Franklin used the power cosmic to resuscitate his mother. Meanwhile, you know Aubrey Plaza as Death was standing over by the Timely Comics box office, saying, "Damn it, I was so close to holding that hottie's hand." The final sequence of the film returns to the Ted Gilbert show, where an emergency call takes them out to the Fantastic Car, where the guys have an extended debate over how to put the car seat in. So, the first post-credit scene takes place
Tears on stage right at home.
4 years later, assuming the main events of
Unless he says what I think is
this film
happening.
were set in 1965, that would make the current year 1969, and Franklin is now 4 years old. In the Baxter Building lounge, Sue reads to Franklin The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, which was my favorite book growing up, and a book I literally read every night to my son. Sue reads the end of the book, he pushed his way out, and pop, he was and Franklin joins her, butterfly. He closes the book, and Sue says, "You want another book, don't you?" Franklin says, "Yeah." Sue says, "Back in a second, babe." And she gets up and goes to the other room, asking Herbie, "Herbie, have you seen the book that Franklin loves?" Herbie pulls off of the shelf Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species. But there was an even more important title on the shelf beside The Origin of Species, a book titled The Moon, Stars, and Planets, Understanding Schrodinger's Cat. This doesn't seem to be a real book, but it might be one Reed Richards wrote. More on these book titles in a second. But in reference to The Origin of Species, Sue says, "Not that one. He did that one yesterday, and I know he loves it, but oh, here it is. We're going for something a bit more fun today, yeah?" And she picks up Mike McClintock's A Fly Went By from 1958. But as Sue walks back toward Franklin, we hear a kind of whoosh or a hum, and some foreboding string music creeps in. Sue activates her force field in her hand like a weapon, and as she rounds the corner around the TV fireplace central console, we see a man facing away from camera, wearing a dark green hood, facing Franklin, who reaches for the man's face in a curious stare, as this man had just removed an iconic metal mask. It's Victor Von Doom. The music we hear in this moment, according to the music credits, it's called Doom by Alan Silvestri. Alan Silvestri is a composer for the Avengers movies and composed the main Avengers suite for Marvel Studios. Dr. Doom, of course, is the primary villain to the Fantastic Four in the comics, one of the greatest Marvel villains, the Latvian ruler who masters both science and magic to torment the Fantastic Four. Doom will be played by Robert Downey Jr. in Avengers Doomsday and in Avengers Secret Wars. The focus on his mask in this scene underlines the one phrase the Russo brothers and Robert Downey Jr. have told us about this version of the character: new mask, same task. That same task we've all been assuming was Tony Stark's futurist ambition to put a suit of armor around the world. But Dr. Doom will have some very different way of doing it. The Russos and their screenwriter, Stephen McFeely, and we just learned from Kevin Feige that they're actually being joined by the writer of Loki and Multiverse of Madness, Michael Waldron. They're all loosely adapting Jonathan Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars event, which features Dr. Doom becoming God Emperor Doom and using apocalyptic incursions between universes to build a multiversal battleground that he rules over called Battleworld. We think Downey's version of Doom will be doing some version of that in Avengers Doomsday coming in December 2026, and he might be using the Void and the TVA
that's two
from the Loki series, and the whole anchor beans concept that we learned about in Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as incursions that have been happening that are now going to be happening between Universe 828, the 616 universe of the primary MCU, and Universe 10005, the X-Men universe, where Monica Rambeau is currently with.
Hold on. Issues 2025, so.
Beast in the basement beneath the X Mansion and Doomsday.
Hold on. I don't think he said it, but. He doesn't. So, in the Thunderbolts post credit, we saw a Fantastic Four ship. No, not ship. Rocket. And entering. They didn't show Fantastic Four at all. So I think that's going to be entrance to Doomsday.
Has been confirmed to feature the return of many of those actors from the Fox X-Men era. Director Matt Shackman confirmed that this scene was directed by the Russo brothers on the set of Avengers Doomsday, which is going to be repurposing the Baxter Building. The Russo brothers also directed the post-credit scene for Thunderbolts. Essentially, that scene and this scene are two scenes from Avengers Doomsday. Probably not scenes that we will see like this exactly played again, but rather preludes to other scenes in which we will see all these characters in various versions of these locations. But fun set detail here, you can see how over the past 4 years there has been a renovation to the Baxter Building set. They fixed the TV that Sue broke, and in an interview with Collider, the four in the cast talked about how they changed the color of the carpet, and Vanessa Kirby and Evan Moss-Bachrach talk about how that room is too big for just 4 people.
It's so nice. Look how big that living room is. That's not for 4 people only. That's what I felt.
That's not a big spoiler.
I'm sure you know the whole movie.
got one big spoiler that I'll share. They changed the color of the carpet.
Yeah, we've had a little renovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
little bit of
Doomsday's
a
got
renovation.
Doomsday. There's been a little
Oh, you see it in the
renovation.
end credits.
You know, it's an intimidating world to walk into. You know, these are people have been doing these movies for like 20 years. They're legends. They're so good at their job. It's nice to have a little bit of a home court, not a home court advantage, but just to be on a set so something does feel familiar, because it can be pretty surreal when you look around a room and you're like, oh, you too? Okay, great. All right.
Now, in this scene, we do not see Dr. Doom's face, but this is most likely Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Dr. Doom. The noise Sue heard was probably Dr. Doom's iconic time platform, the rectangular-shaped teleportation technology that Dr. Doom uses, that actually inspired Reed Richards' teleportation and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The implication of the scene is that Dr. Doom is going to kidnap baby Franklin, and he probably wants his baby for the same reason Galactus did. This baby's got the power Kazakh, baby. Earlier in the film, the Easter egg of the missing Latvian delegation at the Future Foundation was probably a big clue. Now, we don't yet know if Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom comes from this universe, Earth 828, or if he comes from another universe. But we do know that this universe does have a Latveria in it, and that Latveria either has a Dr. Doom ruling it who has no interest in any kind of disarmament, or the empty chair could just be a meta clue that this universe doesn't yet have a Victor Von Doom to speak for it at all. I think if Earth 828 had a Victor who is established as a villainous Dr. Doom to the Fantastic Four, known to them on a scale of their other foes like Mole Man, the Mad Thinker, the Puppet Master, Red Ghost, then Doom's name would have come up when Reed listed off the villains that he was keeping an eye on. Also, with a global threat as severe as Galactus in this movie, I feel like Reed would have called up Dr. Doom for help. So for now, I'm leaning toward Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom coming from another universe. And the Latveria Easter egg in this movie is a hint that there is a separate Victor Von Doom in the 828 universe, played by another actor whom the four just have not met yet, because he's still getting started in this world. So that way, the MCU can have a long-term Dr. Doom after Robert Downey Jr. steps away from his version of the character after Doomsday and after Secret Wars. Today's video is sponsored by Straight Arrow News. Videos like this work because you, the audience, trust us, the nerds at New Rockstars, not only to have factual answers to all the questions you have about the Fantastic Four, but also to provide the context you need for those facts to show you how this movie works in the broader context of the MCU. In a perfect world, that's what all news would be. No bias, no spin, just factual answers to your questions.
Sponsor.
And that's exactly what we go to without bias, filter, or spin. Welcome back to Trustworthy Journalism. But we know the multiverse is at play. We are in phase 6, part of the multiverse saga. Actually, you may have caught how during Reed's Fantastic Science with Mr. Richards' Kids TV program, he actually brings this up.
This equation not only confirms alternate dimensions, but it suggests parallel Earths exist on different dimensional planes.
Kids ignore him, but I think it shows how Reed's research is already starting to explore the multiverse. And then there's that book I brought up, The Moon, Stars, and Planets, Understanding Schrodinger's Cat. So Erwin Schrödinger's thought experiment postulated that a cat could theoretically be both alive and dead at the same time if the cat were hidden from sight within a box with a bowl of poisoned food. Easy to know if the cat started snacking yet. Schrödinger's theory is that for bodies and particles unable to be observed, their properties are impossible to measure, and therefore they could have two opposite states that coexist side by side. This is really part of the basis of quantum physics and multiverse theory. But we should also note that Schrödinger's cat also has very little to do with the moon, stars, and planets, all of which are typically observable, right? So this book title is essentially Roses, Tulips, and Daisies, Understanding Hot Dogs. But even seeing Schrödinger on a shelf in a scene designed to propel us into the multiverse saga cannot be an accident. Meanwhile, The Origin of Species is about Darwin's theory of evolution, which he devised in the 19th century by observing finches and other wildlife on the Galapagos Islands. Franklin Richards is technically an Omega level mutant, so it's probably not just that this 4-year-old is super smart and likes heavy reading. His book of choice was the book on evolution. That has to be setting up Franklin as a key mutant for the upcoming X-Men film, which we think is coming 2028, maybe later, directed by Jake Schreier, and he's going to be a big player in the mutant saga. But before we even get to that mutant saga, there's the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and a fly went by. The Very Hungry Caterpillar is on one level a story about change and metamorphosis. I mean, that is the ending we hear Sue and Franklin reading. But more than that, it's a story about hunger. How the caterpillar just keeps eating, with the chorus of this story being, and he was still hungry. That has to be a nod to the hunger that Galactus sees in Franklin as his successor to the power cosmic. In the comics, the power cosmic refers to the ultimate godly power that Galactus wields and endows his heralds with. Franklin, in this movie, uses his power to resuscitate his mom. Franklin Richards in the comics, though, isn't known to have the power cosmic, but he is a mega powerful Omega level mutant and a reality warper who at one point commands Galactus as his own herald when they fight the mad celestials from another dimension. He's like, "To me, my Galactus!" Franklin and Galactus are kind of cosmic equals in a sense. And in the 2015 Secret Wars event, Franklin goes on to play a very important role in shaping the universe that comes after. And Kevin Feige said this week that after Secret Wars, they plan to essentially reboot the MCU, open even to recasting Tony Stark. This movie being called First Steps refers to this kid being a big part of that process. And so a kid who's experiencing his own metamorphosis with an insatiable hunger, this book was kind of the perfect choice. Meanwhile, A Fly Went By is thematically kind of a middle ground between the Very Hungry Caterpillar and the Origin of Species, because it's a story about a fly, and then a frog, and then a cat, and then a dog, who are all fleeing a predator higher up on the food chain than them. It's a story about hunger and a story about survival of the fittest. And so I think all of this informs why Dr. Doom wants Franklin. I really see two possibilities. One, Dr. Doom realizes how powerful Franklin is as a reality warper and wants to use Franklin's power cosmic to construct Battle World. And or two, Franklin Richards could be the anchor being of Universe 828, and Dr. Doom might be in a race to find all anchor beings of every universe. And I assume Doom's abduction of Franklin will be what leads Fantastic Four to leave Universe 828 to go rescue their kid, but I do think their first stop will be Universe 10005, the X-Men universe. Two, Franklin Richards could be the anchor being of Universe 828, and Dr. Doom might be in a race to find all anchor beings of every universe. And I assume Doom's abduction of Franklin will be what leads the Fantastic Four to leave Universe 828 to go rescue their kid, but I do think their first stop will be Universe 10005, the X-Men universe. The fact that this post-credit scene is 4 years later in the year 1969 explains why the Fantastic Four ship in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene has been upgraded to have 4 fins. Now, during the credits, we see 2 heartfelt dedications. First, for Inez Shackman. That's Matt Shackman's mother, who passed away earlier this year. There's also a dedication to Jamie Christopher, the first unit director and associate producer who worked on a number of Marvel titles, including this film, who passed away in 2023. The scroll then ends with a quote from Jack Kirby: "If you look at my characters, you will find me. No matter what kind of character you create or assume, a little of yourself must remain there." And then the text reveals that 828 was derived from his birth date, 8/28/1917, and he passed away on February 6, 1994. There are a few valid ways to interpret this quote. One is that there is an essence of Jack Kirby in all of these characters, especially in Ben Grimm. This movie has a really sweet cameo by 2 timely comics writers and artists who are clearly modeled on Stan Lee and Jack Kirby when they were younger creatives. Also, I think we can see a kind of reassurance to the anxiety Reed Richards has in this movie that all dads have, a fear that your greatest flaws could be in your kid. This quote says to that, there's nothing wrong with wanting part of yourself to remain in the things that you create. Now, during these credits, you might have heard an odd song playing called Let Us Be Devoured, the studio version. It's written and sung by Andrea Datzman, a musician who's worked with Michael Giacchino on his Marvel and Pixar titles.
Star Wars?
This weekend, I actually found this track on a Spotify playlist and transcribed the lyrics to find some interesting word choice. And I believe that the repeated "Let Us Be Devoured" makes this song kind of a hippie hymn written in this movie and sung by a member of the Galactus death cult that was mentioned in this film, who were in the process of climbing Mount Everest. But notice the lyrics in the second verse. "Even we're all separate different seeds, we have long forgotten how we came from afar, grown from that same sacred cosmic tree." Sacred cosmic tree, you say? That's gotta be a reference to the Yggdrasil Worlds Tree of Asgardian mythology that Loki recently recreated as God of Stories in the Loki finale to embody the current status of the multiverse. The final post-credit scene shows the intro sequence to the animated series that we saw briefly in the opening montage, which seems to be based on the 1967 Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four series. This clip is actually filled with Easter eggs. Like we see the 4 plus Herbie putting their hands together, which itself is a reference from this frame from Fantastic Four #1 in 1961 when the team came together and decided on their monikers. Then when Reed stretches behind him, you see Lee's books, which is a reference to Stan Lee. Actually, Lee's books is in Times Square in the background of this film, not far from Timely Comics. We see Sue blasting the most powerful android of the Mad Thinker from Fantastic Four #69 in 1967. Behind this is a billboard for the Infant Terrible from Fantastic Four #24 in 1963, a play on the common phrase. It was actually part of a race of aliens who can alter reality with their minds. Then we see Johnny torching Dragon Man from Fantastic Four #35. Ben kind of referenced him earlier in the movie. Then we see Reed Reed shrinking Claw from his earlier form from Fantastic Four number 53 in 1966, a character who's later played by Andy Serkis in the MCU. In the comics, they turned Dr. Doom's shrinking ray on him and think he disappeared, but Doom was actually in Micro World the whole time. We see Red Ghost finally getting his cameo, though not played by John Malkovich in this moment, along with his super apes, which tells us that all the villains they're fighting in this were based on real-world villains that they faced in the earlier years. Then we see the four running past this building labeled Impossible Toys and Arcade, which is a nod to Impossible Man from Fantastic Four number 11 in 1962, and how this prankster alien later teamed up with Arcade to make a line of toys that attack Johnny Storm. And then lastly, a grid featuring Mole Man and the Wizard and Puppet Master and Diablo, the villains that Reed was keeping an eye on in the first act of the film. And then we see Herbie's hand reaching over to turn the TV off. I feel like even that meta framing is a nod to Matt Shackman's final shot of WandaVision episode 1, which ended cryptically with a mystery watcher's hand, which we later learned belonged to Darcy Lewis, watching all of the events on a TV screen. And it was the first time Matt Shackman really got to introduce his whimsy to Marvel viewers. And if you want to get to know the hosts of New Rockstars on a deeper level, we do have a new audio-only podcast service called In Our Underground and a series of very interesting episodes.